Okay, I am live for our makeup Q&A. Hopefully you can hear and see me. If not, just chime in with a question and let me know. I've just enabled the Q&A app so that you can do that. This is my first one in a new location. For those who have been following along my housing saga, it's finally come to an end, I hope, in that my family was out. We came home from our Italy trip and some time in Maryland that we spent with family. After that, we came home to a totally flooded house, and there was a plant growing out of our living room rug. There was mold everywhere. It was a disaster. So we had to leave and lived with friends for 2 straight months, different friends, so as not to wear out our welcome. My wife, myself, 2 kids, 2 dogs. In each place, slept in one room on the floor. So it was quite a mess. But we are finally through that, past that, moved into a new place. So I have a new office place here. This is the first sort of webinar thing I've done for it. So maybe the background's not quite how I would like, but that's okay. It works. It's a house. I will take it. So anyway, if you have any problems, I don't know, noise issues or anything with your new house, I apologize. We are kind of close to the rest of my family here. So anyway, this is a makeup webinar from yesterday's, which was supposed to be at 4 p.m. on Monday. Now it's 4 p.m. Tuesday because Google Hangouts had some issues that would not let broadcasting happen, and that's the first time I've ever seen that. So I kind of don't expect too big of a turnout for this one, given the mix-up and the change of dates and times. But happy to answer questions if people are here. And I also have one, or maybe it was multiple, but in my email from someone who couldn't attend live, but sent one in that she wanted me to answer, or maybe it was a few. Let me see what I got here. Okay, this one is from Jean, and she says, let's see. Okay, so she would like to hear me speak about the best type of running shoes. Minimalist or ultras, or do I prefer the heel to be slightly higher? What are your feelings on support shoes for those of us, myself included, this is Jean talking, that overpronate? Would you recommend to those that wear support shoes to wear zero drop ultras or a slightly raised heel, support soles included? The rest of Jean's background is that she's in recovery mode from her first injury. I'll get to that in a minute. I don't think it's related to this. So anyway, shoes. So I will preface this by saying that I don't think there's a right shoe for everyone. I think really the best shoe for any individual is the one, not necessarily is the one that's most comfortable, but that I think is first and foremost. Your shoe has got to actually be comfortable. So if you listen to some running expert recommend a shoe or say that these 3 shoes are the best ones in the world, but when you put them on, they don't feel good on you, I think that's bad, right? I mean, yes, they might be doing all the things that are theoretically good, but if when you wear a shoe, it doesn't feel good to you, then each step you take, you're going to be doing something a little bit weird, right? You're going to be trying to make it feel good, and that's going to be messing with your stride in a way that I don't think you want to do. So I would not leave the store, or I mean, assuming you're buying in a store, or the website, I guess, without a pair of shoes that feels good on you and that makes you feel confident and like you want to run in them. I made this mistake a lot for the first, I don't know, probably 3 pairs of shoes I bought. I just kind of listened too much to what I was supposed to be wearing according to the video analysis that was being done, and not really caring about what felt good on my foot. And it wasn't until I actually just kind of went with my gut and went with what felt good, which turned out to be a neutral shoe, by the way, when I had been fit in stability shoes all these times by the machines. It wasn't until I made that switch that I finally stopped getting injured. So I don't know, a lot of factors were involved in my stopping getting injured, but that was one of them. So anyway, that's the preface. I think you need to make sure a pair of shoes is comfortable for you. So the way to find that out really is to try different pairs of shoes. And I don't mean just trying them in the, apologies for my dogs barking. I don't mean just trying them in the running store, but having them, trying them, wearing them, and seeing how it goes. And it might be that you end up having to buy 3 pairs of shoes before you really find one that you like and that works for you. Unfortunately, that's kind of one of the costs of running. Luckily, there aren't all that many costs of running that raise entry fees and clothes, but they don't wear out that fast or anything. So So okay. So all that's sort of the preface. Now, I like the minimalist shoe idea. I think the trend towards minimalism away from big bulky shoes is in general a good thing for most runners' everyday training. That said, I think some amount of cushioning is good, particularly because it's going to protect your feet against just stuff that happens to be in the roads and the hard surface of roads and sidewalks that we probably didn't evolve running on. So I do think some amount of cushioning is good, but I really do like the zero drop trend. I think that's a very, very natural way to do things, is to run the way our foot is meant to. For tens of thousands of years, we didn't have anything under our foot when it landed, at least not anything that was built up under the heel but not built up under the toe. Maybe running on thin pieces of leather or whatever people used to run on, but very little technology involved there. And chances are we were landing on something that was flat. So I think that makes sense to run barefoot, or sorry, not barefoot, to run zero drop like a barefoot runner would be. And zero drop just means heel is the same height as the toe, even if they're both raised up, even if they're both kind of cushioned. So what's nice about Ultra shoes is that they let you get zero drop. For all their shoes are zero drop, so that's good, meaning the heel is the same height as the toe, but they have different levels of cushioning. So you can buy a pair of Ultras that is zero drop but has very little cushioning, or you can get one that is zero drop but has maximal cushioning, like the Hoka kind of shoes, where you've got a whole inch or more of cushioning under your foot. As I've written before, I'm a fan of Ultras. I like them a lot. I think the philosophy is great. I love that they are also foot shaped and have a lot of room in the toe box so that your foot can also land as if you're running barefoot, right? Your toes can like spread out in the shoe rather than being jammed in there. That makes a lot of sense to me too. So I really like them for that reason. The Ultras that I wear day to day are the One Square, which I just heard are discontinued, but they have another minimalist shoe, I'm sure now. But anyway, I don't, even zero drop, I don't think it's a great idea to run with maximal cushioning, a big amount of cushioning between your foot and the ground. Because I think if you get too much to the point where it's unnatural, yes, it can feel really cushy and good, but when you run on softer, very soft surfaces, or you land on something very cushy like that, you're kind of asking in the long term for joint issues. Golden Harper, the founder of Ultra, actually told me that he found when people ran in minimalist shoes, eventually the injuries that would happen were foot injuries, just injuries within the foot. Once you add padding, oh, by the way, and those people would tend to have fewer joint issues. Once you add the padding, the foot injuries start to disappear because there's lots of cushioning and your foot doesn't take a lot of abuse. But the joint injuries start to appear over the long term. So I saved the maximal type shoes, the big 1.5 inch or whatever, inch thick soles. I saved that for like ultra marathon race day, to be worn every now and then, maybe for your longest of long runs, but not something I want to be running in day to day. So I tend to run in something much more minimal than that, but you can use that shoe for kind of a targeted race, a targeted use in the race might be the maximal shoe. Okay, so that's my feeling on minimalist versus ultras. One more thing I'll say about minimalism is I like the concept, I like the idea of minimalism, but only because really it makes you take quicker and lighter steps, right? Once we lose that layer of protection of either a big cushion under our foot or this slanted, the built up heel but not the built up toe, once we lose this kind of stuff that really blocks the natural feedback of landing on the ground in the right or wrong way, once we lose that, we start taking really long strides, and these strides that we're not meant really to run with for long distances at all. And if you do all your miles, let's say you're training for a marathon and you're running 40 miles a week, if you start running 40 miles a week with the wrong stride, with a long, slow stride, by slow I don't mean your running speed, I just mean how quickly your legs are turning over, but this long stride where you're landing with your leg way out in front of your body, we're meant to run on that. That's for short sprints. That's a quick, a short distance, short burst of speed stride. We're not meant to be running miles and miles with that long stride. So if you do that, as the modern built-up running shoes allow you to do because they're so cushioned, I think you're asking for injury over the long term. So minimalist shoes, bring that feedback back in, because suddenly it hurts to run like that. So they force you to take quicker and lighter and shorter steps. Your cadence probably approaches the 180 number that you always hear me talk about, 180 steps per minute or 3 steps per second. And when you do that, as a result, your weight stays over your feet, right? Because now there's not time for your leg to get way out in front of your body in such a short stride. And that finally, at the end of all this, makes you not crash down on your heel, but rather land somewhere on your midfoot. Just because your weights, if you're running with your feet right under your body rather than having them be in front of it, it's hard to heel strike really, really drastically. So you naturally start midfoot striking, and that's important. I think that's one of the big things. Like minimalism, people who started just getting barefoot shoes or whatever, a lot of people would hear about that heel strikes were bad, right? Born to Run tells us all that heel strikes were bad. So people started just changing their foot strike, right? The stride stays exactly the same. They still do the long and slow stride with their foot landing in front of the body, but now they're doing it with their foot bent at a little bit different angle so that they're not landing on their heel. And I think that's like applying a Band-Aid to a problem that's much deeper. Much, much better is go back, address sort of the core issue, which is that cadence, turn your feet over faster so that your weight stays over your feet, and suddenly you automatically land somewhere near your midfoot. If it's still a mild heel strike, I think it's totally fine as long as you're doing the rest of the stuff right. So that's why I'm so big on that one key. And what I'm trying to say with all this is that you don't need minimalist shoes in order to do that. If you can naturally get yourself to run in that manner, run like a barefooter, but do it with shoes on, or run like a minimalist shoe runner does, but do it with regular normal running shoes on, I think you'll be just fine. Still, even in that case, I think you'd be better off landing on an even surface, meaning a zero drop shoe or something that's close to zero drop, maybe 4 millimeters, maybe even 8 millimeters, but I think 4 millimeters or less is what I try to do. So if you can run like a minimalist person, it doesn't matter how built up your shoe is, but I think you don't want to be landing on an angle. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that I just said. I know, very, very long answer to only the first of your questions, but hopefully that will help you in making a choice. Also, I mean, I wouldn't go into the store saying I have to get a minimalist shoe or I have to get ultras. Just go in, try different stuff, and be open to listening what the benefits of these different shoes are. I think with that sort of reasoning, what I just told you about, with that as your framework, I think you should be able to make a decision from there. Now, next part, would you recommend to those that wear support shoes? Oh, what are your feelings on support shoes for those of us, myself included, that overpronate? So support shoes just means that there's some posting in the instep usually that prevents you from rolling your foot over, from overpronating. The alternative, I mean, the stability shoe, as Gene is referring to, is basically the alternative to a neutral shoe, to a shoe that doesn't have that, and a shoe that isn't there to control the motion of your foot. A stability shoe is designed to control the movement of your foot. As you might be able to guess, I'm not really a fan of that idea for all the same reasons I just mentioned about us running in a way that's natural and like our foot is designed to do. I don't think that 98% of runners probably need, you know, let me say that 98% of runners, I think, can do perfectly well in a neutral shoe if they run correctly. So I think most stability shoe purchases are probably not necessary. That's not to say you can't run in a stability shoe and be successful, but I think you will be more likely to be successful if your motion of your foot is not unnaturally controlled. Now, if you do overpronate, I think what you should do is try minimalist shoes. See what happens when you do it. If possible, get the gait analysis and see if you go to a not a barefoot, not a Vibram 5 fingers, but just a fairly minimal shoe with very little cushioning, zero drop, and see if the overpronation goes away, as it does for most people. It's very, very hard to overpronate in a shoe that has no cushioning or very little cushioning under it, and one that has no heel to toe drop. So, you know, I don't think it's necessary. That said, back to the beginning thing, if you put on a neutral shoe and you run in it and you don't like how it feels, and you just feel yourself overpronating in a weird way, then yeah, go back to the support shoes. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I just think for most people it's unnecessary. You know, there are certain people who, you know, people who are very heavy are one, who I think can sometimes benefit from a support shoe. And because again, that's not, when we're talking about people, the foot evolving through these tens of thousands of years and people going out on the plains and, even persistence hunting, which I'm not in denial about, that happened. It probably wasn't tremendously heavy people doing that because there weren't tremendously heavy people back then, probably. And if there were, when maybe there rarely was, and I don't think it'd be anything close to like it is now, in terms of even what would be considered a heavy person, that person probably wouldn't be on the persistence hunting squad of the tribe. So anyway, I think to be a fairly large person is unnatural in the sense of like when we look back at how things used to be tens of thousands of years ago. So I don't think it's I think that's why there's the exception to be made that someone who is very large, very heavy might benefit from a stability shoe. Similarly, there's arch issues and all kinds of stuff, and I don't know that much about different foot issues. That's not at all my area of expertise. But so I'm not saying that orthotics aren't ever useful. I'm sure there are cases where stuff like that is useful, but in general, for 95%, 98% of people, I think if we just reduce the amount of controlling that we're trying to do of the foot, the better we're going to be. This all, of course, depends on you actually adjusting your running form as a result of wearing these shoes that are minimal, whether you mean minimal cushioning or just less support, less motion control in the shoe. Your form should adjust as a result of getting the actual feedback from the road and the pain that it, if it hurts to take a big long stride, you better be shortening your stride, and if you're not, then you're going to get injured. So let's see, anything else to say here? Oh, so for a support shoes person, would I recommend a zero drop ultras or a slightly raised heel? I would recommend the zero drop, but it's not going to be for everyone. Some people are going to try that and say this feels terrible, or they'll go out for a run and even following the easing into this rules. And by the way, if you're switching to minimalist shoes, switching to zero drop shoes for the first time, you should not just suddenly put them on for 100% of your runs and expect to be fine. Even after lots and lots of very gradual transitioning and even a decent amount of running in really minimalist shoes, I still can't do it for more than 25 miles a week in a very minimalist, almost no cushioning shoe like the Brooks Pure Drift that I love so much. And I love them because they feel great to run in. However, if I run for more than 20, 25 miles a week in them, I'll start waking up with really tight calf muscles and all kinds of issues. So that sort of thing, that happens, and I think I did it right in terms of gradually adjusting to this shoe. So if you just jump right into a pair of these and start using them for all your runs, you're probably going to have issues like that, possibly even worse, possibly foot stress fractures and things like that from not giving your body time to build new muscles, because you're using brand new muscles that have been neglected when you switch to new shoes, or new shoes that are minimalist. So anyway, as I was saying, what led into that was that you might try a pair of zero drop shoes, and you might try such a gradual transition for a while, and you might just find that it's just never starting to feel comfortable, that there's always tightness in your lower legs, or whatever, that you're getting injured. I mean, and then in that case, if that happens, that's a pretty good sign that maybe you should go back to a 4mm or 8mm drop and just see how it goes. Similarly to what I was saying, in terms of easing into runs in zero drop shoes, you could also ease in the sense of if you've always had a 12mm drop, you could get for your next pair an 8mm drop and run in that for 4 months or whatever it is, and then get a new pair of shoes that's a 4mm drop for the next 4 months, and then finally go to zero drop. And even then, when you get to the zero drop, I would probably take some time to go from the 4 to the 0. Run half and half, or maybe just one run a week in the zero drop at first, moving to 2 runs a week next after that, and so on. Okay, and then support insoles included. I guess that depends on what type of shoe you're talking about with supportive insoles. Even in the Brooks Pure Drift, I always wore the support insoles, which created a 4mm drop as opposed to zero drop. And I didn't really like that I was doing that, because I wanted to be zero drop. But even with that in there, I couldn't get to the point where I could comfortably run in these for a lot of miles a week. So I ended up not being able to do it. So I never really went to the no insole there. However, in my ultras, as far as I know, they don't have a support insole that does anything like that raises the drop or anything. That would be a very un-ultra thing to do. By the way, when I'm saying ultra here, it's ALTRA for anyone listening who doesn't know how it's spelled. It's not like ultra marathon, different. But yes, as far as I know, I don't think they do support insoles, but I don't know. I haven't really known. I'm actually going to find out. I'm going to see them in like 2 days at Runners World headquarters, where I and some other bloggers are going, and sponsored by Ultra for this Runners World race. And Golden Harper, the CEO who was on our podcast last year, I think, he will again be there and introducing their new shoes and stuff. So I will know a lot more about Ultra again after next week. Okay, so so the support insoles answer is I would, if your shoe offers support insoles, if it gives you those, and you're coming from a less minimal shoe, then I would probably use them as kind of a transition thing and make that part of this easing in process. And you may eventually move away from those support insoles. Maybe you always keep them in there. I don't really know. And I'm assuming you're not talking about like buying different support insoles that are meant for supportive runners. You know, because I used to do that too. I used to when I was being fit in stability shoes, I even got to the point of also buying, this is when I was kind of a brand new runner, but also buying insoles that I was sticking in there so my foot was really supported, totally motion controlled. I would not recommend that. I don't think that's a good idea at all. But if you're going to a zero drop shoe and you've always been in support shoes all your life, then maybe that's a good intermediate step. Okay, that was a long answer to one question about running shoes, but I guess running shoes are complicated. And I'm not even like a running shoe nerd who knows all about stuff like that. So I guess someone like that could give an hour-long answer. Or maybe because they would understand it better, they could give a much shorter answer than I just did. I don't know. All right. So anyway, if you're here watching live, and I see that people are, feel free to jump in with a question. These are here for your questions, not so much for the email questions. Those are just a nice thing I try to do for people who can't attend. But if you're here live, go ahead. By all means, jump in with a question. That is the only email question I have, or those questions were the only email questions I have. So I will wrap up in a couple minutes if we don't have new ones coming in live. So by all means, get them in if you've got them. You can ask about the 100 Minutes Faster series if you'd like, since that was our focus for the past month, actually month and a half. Or you can ask about anything else, whatever you've got, diet, running, whatever, vegan, philosophy, ethics, I don't know. Okay, I'm just reading the rest of Gene's email here just to see if there's another question, but I don't think it is. No, just background info. Okay, so if you've got a question, jump in with it. Let me see. Oh, there's a question. Okay, question from Amy, who I don't know if Amy is here live. If you are Amy, then hi, and I'm sorry the questions app is not working correctly for you. But Amy says, I'm curious whether you think hill work is sufficient speed training without adding anything like sprints. I have some version of the problem you say many runners have, running all miles at the same hard-ish effort, but my miles are almost all slow, and I would like to get a little faster. I just don't know how to do that without a lot of focus. I like to just go out and run. Hills seem like the path of least resistance to me, and I'm not sure if that is a good approach. Also, what's your opinion on running all slow miles? Am I just shooting myself in the foot? Okay, good. Really great question there, Amy. And one that I can talk a lot about. I'll try to not talk for 25 minutes about that one. But let's see. So where to begin here? Okay, so the question of whether hill work is sufficient speed training without adding anything like sprints. It really depends on what you mean by sufficient. Like what is it sufficient for? I think for most purposes, and coming from the position of having run almost all your miles at the same pace and almost all slow, then I would say yes, that probably is sufficient. Because in this case, I think sufficient is anything that gets you trying something new. Like as I'm assuming you heard this on our podcast. I guess it was last week or earlier this week, but we were talking about how all runners, or not all, a lot of runners do all runs at the same pace. Just go out and run, as Amy mentioned that she likes to do. And I understand that appeal. You just want to go out and run, and that's we get in that rhythm and just like to go get our run in, and that's our run. It's sort of this effort that is hard but not that hard. Just kind of enough to, like, we're kind of at what we can do for the distance, and then we get in and we had a good run and we feel a little bit exhilarated from having gone for it, but we haven't really pushed hard because we're not dead at the end of it. We're not totally gassed, and we also haven't gone easy enough, right? We haven't gone so easy that it's that it was relaxing or restorative in any way. It was still an effort. So people do that every day and they get nowhere because they're doing the same, what's called junk miles, where you're not fast enough to really force adaptation by your body, but you're not slow enough to be getting these aerobic benefits or to be allowing yourself the recovery from a hard workout. So much better is to kind of train in peaks and valleys, hard day followed by easy day, hard day followed by easy day, and so on. Doesn't have to be strictly alternating, but might be 2 hard workouts a week surrounded by 2 easy runs each or something, and then a day off in the middle. Okay, so yeah, so I mean, if just saying I'm going to do the same thing, I'm still going to go out and run, but I'm going to go over some hills this time, I think that's a start. I would probably try to treat those hills as like interval workout type thing. So like, I mean, assuming you're not talking about giant hills that are automatically going to be a crazy effort to run over, maybe what you could do is let the hills be your signal to turn it on just a little bit. And to make that let's say you have 3 hills in your run that take 2 minutes each to run up. Well then you have 3 tough 2-minute intervals in your run, and that can be and make them really tough. Like, work hard, don't get yourself hurt, of course. And you do have to be careful if you're running up a hill and running hard. And that's 2 new things at once rather than just one. But I like that as a like just an introductory workout, and push it, right? Get to the point where it's hard and like you're ready for that hill to be done when you get to the top of it, and you're really relieved that it is, and you worked hard. And ideally you get to the point where once you're done that 3rd hill or that 4th hill or the 5th hill or however many you're trying to work into your workout here, and you come home, you say, hey, that was a really hard day I did, and I feel good but really tired from doing that. That's good. And then the next day you want to go easy, of course, and then the next day or 2 days later go for the hill workout again. So yeah, I mean, I think that can be totally fine. Certainly, a person who's really serious about racing at a high level is going to say, no, that's not sufficient speed training. That you need to be doing some other sprints. That you need to be doing some speed work that isn't on hills. So not so much saying that you have to do sprints, because you said without doing anything like sprints, but just I think a serious running coach who was coaching someone who had a serious goal of improving their marathon time at a high level, they would say, well, you want to be doing some speed work that's on flat terrain. You don't want your only speed work to be on hill terrain, because I think then you're not training you're kind of, yes, you're getting stronger in a way when you run on those hills hard, but you're not training your flat muscles to go fast. I mean, because it is different muscles to run up hills than it is to run on flat. So you probably want to get all of it worked in there. But in your case, I think that's totally fine, and I get it. Like, I've done a decent amount of running ever since I moved to Asheville, where it is very hilly, and I've been more focused on just running some ultra marathons, but not so much time focused as much as just getting more and more mileage in. And hills, that has been what I've done. I haven't done many hard speed workouts or anything like that, but just by running hills and letting myself put the effort in now and then on a hill, and not just taking it easy. So what you don't want to do, Amy, is when you hit the hill, start going really easy, because now it's a hill and you figure, well, I'm going to slow down because it's a hill. And so in that case, someone could do this and basically keep their heart rate at the same level all the time, right? You could do a hill work, you could do a run on hills, but every time you hit a hill, you slow down to the point where your heart rate is staying steady throughout that run. If you do that, you're not getting any sort of this workout, right? You're not. I mean, yes, you're working out your muscles, your leg muscles, differently by having them run up hills. But in terms of improving your lungs, you're not doing that at all if you keep the efficiency the same. Now, in a race, you hear me talk about race strategy. It's great to keep the intensity the same. That means when you hit the hill, slow down so that your heart rate is the same. Or when you hit the downhill, speed up so that your heart rate is staying the same. Run it at a constant intensity. That's a good thing to do when it's race day. But we're not talking about race day. We're not talking about conserving energy. We're talking about you want to get a workout in, let yourself go fast on the hills. Doesn't mean necessarily speeding up on the hills, but keeping the speed what it is on the hills, and then the hill itself is going to cause a workout. That's different from slowing down so that your heart rate stays what it is. Okay, so anyway, that's my answer. It's fine. And also, by the way, when you said anything like sprints, a lot of marathon coaches won't have you ever do anything under 400 meters, and some won't have you do anything under 800 meters for your interval. So those are not sprints, right? Sprints are much shorter than that. And a lot of marathon distance coaches, I don't know for sure that you're a marathoner, but long half marathon distance coaches generally aren't going to have you doing really short sprints. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Also, don't neglect what Doug and I suggested, the idea of just going out, kind of like a fartlek workout, but you just go out and set your watch for 5 minutes. And every time it gets to a new 5 minutes, do a 1 minute or 1.5 minute kind of little speed session where you're just going as fast as you can sustain for 1.5 minutes or a minute, whatever it is. And then making sure when you switch back to slow pace for the next 3.5 minutes before that 5 minute bell goes off again, that you are completely recovering and kind of getting back to where you feel comfortable and not out of breath. And then you do it again. And you might do only 2 or 3 of those your first time because it'll be hard. And then gradually you'll get better at it and you can do more of them. And you can do a longer percentage of the time can be your work session or work set. And then a smaller percentage becomes your rest period. So you might get to the point where it's 2 full minutes of hard running followed by 3 minutes of rest. And you repeat that 4 or 5 times, and that's a workout. So that's also something that is, not that far from just going out and run. Yes. I mean, there is more time stuff to deal with, but it's way different still from like a track workout where it's really, really structured. Okay, and what's my opinion on running all slow miles? Am I just shooting myself in the foot? No, I mean, it's useful. I think, and the earlier you are in your running career, the more useful slow running is. Later on, once you've done some races, half marathons and marathons, I don't know if there's going to be a big benefit to you taking 3 or 6 months or more and doing all slow miles to kind of like build your base, because you probably already have a pretty solid base. But when you're new at running, and Rich Roll is a famous example of this, as he mentions in his book, there's the Maffetone method, which is basically for several months. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 or if there is a specific amount. I think Maffetone himself kind of just says do it for all the time. Not letting yourself get out of a zone 1 aerobic zone. Keeping your heart rate below 70% of max. And just doing that and never getting faster. There are people who think that's the best way to train. I don't know. I think maybe long-term health benefit-wise, it's pretty good. As far as running your fastest marathon or half marathon or anything shorter, I tend to think there's a place for speed workouts and hill workouts and all kinds of harder stuff that's going to elevate your heart rate. But I think as a off-season type of thing that's preceding let's say you have a marathon on the calendar for 8 months from now, and for 3 months you're committed to just running slow, and then you're going to start your training. I think that's where it's useful. I think that can be really useful. For me, it was useful when I kept getting hurt and couldn't get myself to run a second marathon, couldn't successfully complete a training program when I was trying to do all these workouts. When I finally just backed off and said, okay, I'm giving up on all time goals. All I'm going to do is run slow and get the miles in so that I can run a second marathon. And it took me 4 years to get back to completing a marathon or even starting a marathon after my first one. But that was how I finally did it, by just doing all slow miles for the whole training. Kind of boring for me, but I did it. And some people like that. Some people enjoy running all slow miles. So it sounds like, Amy, like you do enjoy that. But even someone who does, and I've been in places where I have enjoyed that and not wanted to do any fast stuff, but you can, at least in my case, once you start the speed work, it comes to be more enjoyable. At first, it's not, right? It's painful like anything else when it's new. Well, not anything else, but like any new exercise routine when it's new, often it's painful. And then you get to the point where it starts to be fulfilling, and you actually enjoy it, and you like as weird as it say, you like that it's painful. So like going to the gym. I mean, it hurts, but it's fun sometimes if you're doing well. So anyway, if you're interested in the slow miles thing, read Maffetone's stuff or listen to his interview on the No Meat Athlete Radio podcast. The end of that interview gets a little weird, but the beginning is all good stuff about slow running. And his books too. He has a book called The Maffetone Method, and then I think he has a new book called like The Endurance Handbook. That's what we were talking about in this interview with him. And I think he said that sort of it has replaced the Maffetone method as far as his most up-to-date approach to endurance. So anyway, I don't think it's just shooting yourself in the foot. I think it can be really useful to run all slow miles, but I don't know. It depends what your goals are, and it depends who you want to listen to. It depends whose philosophy you agree with. But no, it's not just universally agreed upon that running all slow miles is terrible. Some people do think it's good, but I would say the majority would agree that putting in some harder workouts in there so that you are varying the intensity of your workouts is going to be a good thing for you. Okay, great question, Amy. See if we got any others coming in. No, I don't see any in my inbox. And any on Facebook? I don't think so. If you have one live, by all means jump in, or if the live chat is not working for you like it wasn't for Amy, then you can email me a question or stick it on our Facebook Academy page under the post that I put about this Q&A. Just looking if there's anything new coming in. I don't see anything, although I see that people are here, but I don't see questions. Make sure I'm not somehow hiding them. But no, I don't see them. So I'm going to wrap it up. Get a question in now if you've got one, and if you want me to answer it. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about running, or doesn't have to be just about 100 minutes faster. It can be whatever you want. And I hope you've enjoyed the 100 minutes faster thing. That was fun for me to do, a different type of format for the Academy. Just kind of experimenting and see if that makes sense for no meat athlete stuff or not. But I like it. It's not a terrible amount of effort to make those webinars with slides and stuff. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope this has been good. I've enjoyed the questions that we had and enjoyed giving some in-depth answers to them. Hopefully the noise situation here was okay, even in this new house. And thank you again for hanging in there with me this month. I know it was a weird month. It was a weird 3 months for me. And this last one, of course, things started to fall apart as far as my I was able, for 2 months, I was able to kind of get by and without work stuff falling apart. But it seemed that by the third month of me working less hours and just less effectively during those hours, by the third month, stuff started to I could just tell I was starting to get behind on stuff. Which I don't not beat myself up over, because it was an extremely hard situation. I don't know if people, I don't know if it sounds that tough, and I guess it sounds sort of weird when there are other people who are undergoing obviously way more suffering than that. But it was a really tough time for us to get through 2 months with no house when we have a 5-year-old and a 2-month-old. But very grateful for friends who took us in, and also very happy to have gotten a house in this Asheville market, which was very hard to find a place in. Places go quick. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate it, and we'll get back on track soon. All right, talk to you later. Bye.